This tutorial is going to demonstrate how to cite a fairly complicated type of source. Just to show you how complicated this source is, let me show you its name. This is coming from the student supplement to the SBL Handbook of Stlye, a PDF that is meant to support undergraduate students in biblical studies. If you don't have this PDF, I highly recommend that you get it if you are an undergraduate student. But they call this source in the student supplement Multivolume Commentaries for the entire Bible by multiple authors. So let me try to explain to you the situation here. The idea is that each book of the Bible gets its own commentary, and that commentary is written by a different author. And then you take multiple commentaries like this and you bind them together into one book. However, because it's too long to fit into one large book, you have to break it up into multi-volumes. So you have multiple volumes of a particular commentary that eventually covers the whole Bible, and each particular commentary on each particular book is written by a different person, or is written by multiple authors. So let me give you an example, and then we'll look at how to cite it. So in this case, the commentary as a whole is the Transforming Word. That's the name of the multi-volume work, the whole commentary, right? That's what it's called. We are looking at, in the Transforming Word, the commentary on Mark that's written by Alan Black. So this is the first page of the commentary. The title of it is Mark, simply, and the author is Alan Black. So we want to cite the commentary on Mark written by Alan Black that appears in the Transforming Word. Now, the Transforming Word, the way it's broken up here in the Revised Edition, is that rather than trying to fit it all into one book, it's broken up into multiple volumes. So volume 4 of the Transforming Word is called Jesus and the Church, Reading the Gospels and Acts. And included in volume 4 are the commentaries on Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Acts. Then you'd find in other volumes the commentaries on the other books, and each commentary on each book written by a different author. So that's complex, and that's going to make it a little bit challenging to cite. But once you learn how to do this, I think you'll see the rules make sense, and you'll be able to cite these kind of sources without too much difficulty. So we can look at a couple different paradigms to help us. Again, this is the example from the SBL Student Supplement, and so they break down and show you what that might look like with these examples from the New Interpreter's Bible, another multi-volume commentary. But they also point you to the section in the SBL Handbook on Style that you can find how to cite this source. So if we go to 6.2.23 in the SBL Handbook, then we have this section on a chapter within a titled volume in a multi-volume work. Okay, so we're treating the commentary on Mark by Alan Black like a chapter within a titled volume. The titled volume here is Jesus and the Church, right? Reading the Gospels and Acts. And the multi-volume work that's in is the Transforming Word. So that's what we're looking at here, and so we can use these paradigms as examples of how to cite it. And if you're looking here, you can see it follows the general progression that we've come to expect, right? Author's name, followed by the title of the chapter, right? And then we start to get other information. So let's go ahead and start that here. Right, we'll get the author's name and the chapter to start our entry. Okay, so we got the author's name, last name first. You might have noticed, if you were paying close attention, that I think we have a typographical error in the SBL Handbook here. Right, they've actually not done this correctly. It should be Peterson, David. Period, right, if you're in your bibliography entry. So they've actually made a little mistake there, which are always kind of fun and disconcerting to find at the same time. So we have the author's name and the title of the chapter. Then we need to include the inclusive pages that this chapter takes up in the work that it's a part of. And so I've looked at that information and have it here. All right, so those are the pages for this particular chapter. So we say pages 101 to 144 in, and now we put the title of the particular volume that this is a part of, right? Which is, in this case, Jesus and the Church. Okay, once we have that, then we can indicate that this is volume 4 in the larger work, the Transforming Word. Okay, once we have that information, now we're ready for the editor information. But before we do that, right, one thing to notice is that this is also a revised edition. So not only do we need the editor's name, but we need to indicate this is a revised edition. So what we need to do to make sure we do this correctly is go back to our sequence of information from the beginning of chapter 6 in the SBL Handbook and make sure we put this in the right order. Okay, so we have both an editor right, and an edition. What's the order we put that information? Editor first, and then the edition. Now, if you look at the example in the SBL Handbook, go back to our paradigm here on the chapter within a title, volume, and a multi-volume work, you'll notice that they mention the editor a couple of times, right? Once after the name of the particular volume, and then once after the name of the larger multi-volume work. That's because in the example they're citing, there's different editors for each one. In our case, with the Transforming Word, as is also true, as you notice here with the New Interpreter's Bible, it's the same editor for all of them, so we only need to mention the editor after the larger work, not after the individual volume. So we just put the editor's name here. So the last thing that we need then after this is our publication information, the information about the publisher. And now we've got our entry, properly formatted in terms of what it should look like in the bibliography. So a lot of information there, a little bit complex, but it does follow some rules that make some sense. Okay, if we want to start to make a footnote, we've got all the information here. We just need to put it in a slightly different format, as you know. So I'm going to copy and paste it here and then begin to edit it in the way that we need to edit it to make it work as a footnote. First of all, we're going to put the author's name first, and then we're going to separate things by commas rather than by periods. If I was citing the entire work, then I would just leave the inclusive pages here. But most often in footnotes, we're citing specific pages. And so in that case, I'm going to take this out, and I'll put the specific page I'm citing at the end. Okay, so we include this here, and then we start to separate things by commas instead of periods, abbreviating in the proper way as we do so. All right, moving to lowercase where needed, things that have been capitalized. Then we put in parentheses the publisher information, and add our page number. Okay, and that's what a long footnote would look like the first time you cite the source. Thankfully, the short footnote is very easy, much like what we've seen in other places. You just need the author's last name, a title, and page number. Notice we're keeping the title in quotation marks because the title is the title of the chapter or the smaller work within the larger volume that it's being cited in. And so that gives you that information. That's what that should look like. So fairly easy to do that. Now, one other note about citing these kinds of sources. If you're looking in the SBL Student Supplement, you might notice that it offers some possibilities of shorter citations for this kind of source. So this top one here is the footnote, and the bottom one here would be a bibliography entry. What they're doing basically is abbreviating the larger work, including the volume number right after that. That's the number before the colon, and then the page numbers right on the other side of the colon. They're doing that because a work like the New Interpreter's Bible is so well known that they're suggesting you don't need to include all the publication information because any reader will recognize NIB for what it is, and you can just put the volume number and page number. And so you basically have done that here, right? And pretty much for the most part, that's the information you provided here. They list that as a possibility. I would strongly recommend that's not what you do when you're citing this kind of source. The reason I would recommend that is I think that becomes unnecessarily or potentially confusing because this citation looks so much like the citation of a dictionary article. And so it might give your reader the impression, if they don't immediately recognize NIB as standing for New Interpreter's Bible, just that the style, the format of the citation may give the impression that you're citing a dictionary article, which you're not. You're citing a much larger, longer work than a dictionary article typically is. And so I think citing it in this shortened format creates unneeded confusion, potential confusion. So I would recommend that when you're citing this kind of source, you use the long citation both for the bibliography entry and for the footnote. And even though it is long and complex, once you learn how to do this, it's not all that hard to be able to do easily on your own.